Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen all these awards and everything.
Oh yeah, that Irina's got the. She won a few parade of homes. She did real good. Knocked it out of the park.
Excellent. Are you going to the parade
No.
this month?
No,
May?
I've never gone.
Really?
No, she's always done like a girls thing, specifically for like Mother's Day. Like a bunch of girls will like rent a limo, get mimosas.
Do they really get a limo?
Day drunk.
Or you,
No, they do.
I can't tell if this is a joke.
No, they did. They've done it before. It's like
because I could see it.
it's
I
like
see that
and
happening.
it's like 30 houses that you gotta go visit.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a whole crowd that's there for decorations,
Uh-huh.
and then a different crowd that's there for building design. Who's your roofer? I need a roofer, please.
Really? So it's like more like a networking, find out a subcontractor kind of thing.
Or let me steal your home plan.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, the home plan. Yeah, I know that one. I imagine like normal.
Or like I look around and say, okay, I kind of like the trim that you're doing on this house. I'm gonna go tell my trim guy to start doing this, or ask hey, I like the hardware that you've got. I'm gonna steal that idea. Like little things like that.
Now, is this a fact or is this you're assuming?
I mean, I don't have it quantified,
Right?
But it's a fact.
Well, that sounds like a Freudian nightmare.
Because you have builders and contractors that go to these things.
Well, because I would imagine everything comes
they're not
down.
there to see what color pillow.
Right,
that they
but
got,
also Parade of Homes is always a thing that where like they splurge. It's not about cost.
It's
like
a
they
pissing contest of builders, and so it's like, let me show you the basketball court I put in, and
it's usually this house is already sold. Like it's built for a particular person, and then they're like, hey, by the way, are you okay if we put it into Parade of Homes? So I don't see any reason why a competitive builder would go see, because everything comes down to that side is like cost, right? So it's like, hey, I'm using certain hardware not because it's the nicest, but because I'm trying to get my profit margin where we need it to be.
Sure. So yeah, it's a more complicated.
Because you can easily go and be like, you know what we need? We're really going to stand out by getting a copper soaker tub from Italy. Like you could do that. You don't need inspiration from that. But
yeah, do they have the prices? They don't have prices listed on those. Yeah.
No, there's no. I mean, it's cool because their budgets. I know when Irina was staging, like the budget was great. They're like, just make it look perfect.
Yeah, and CBH Homes are going to add that fourth subway tile on the kitchen backsplash, so it's going to look. Woo, you're going to walk in and go,
the splash zone.
I'm used to 3. That's incredible.
The splash
zone. You got the 4th.
So now, if you're in a hurry, you could actually not worry about splashing. You're like, it's okay, baby. We got the 4th level.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious. So you're a married man now. Let me see.
Look
at you.
Are we recording?
Oh,
are we rolling?
Yeah.
Okay.
We started
because I was saving that for your viewers. The big reveal. I'm married, and for your viewers following at home, they've been following my saga.
They have been following saga. In fact,
they engaged man, and we told the divorce story and everything, so we can all rest easy now that this is happily ever after. I reached it.
This is your three-peat on podcast, so you've definitely. This is a complete trilogy now.
We got at least one comment who specifically referenced me. So
the voice.
Somebody's saying I had a nice voice. So I hope that guy's listening.
Shout out to you, Greg.
Thank you. You're my one and only fan. I think.
I like how pro you are. You found the camera that's on you. You're like, shout out to you,
Gary, Greg, or whoever you are, man. Appreciate it.
So when did you get married?
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
Of 2022. Yeah, I got to remember that. And
do you avoid April 1st specifically for?
No, and I made a joke, of course. April 1st, I was going to send out a cancellation notice, and Marin's eyes rolled completely back around.
Yeah.
And they came back up from the bottom. And she's got really a signature eye roll, and I've really helped her perfect that.
Really extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I have helped her work on that day in and day out.
What you want to do is just let it roll back until pure darkness. Don't worry, it'll roll back forward again. Light will be on.
Yeah, she's got this eye roll where like one eye can go maybe back into the eyelid, and the other one's like stuck in the corner and then like twitch. I make her lose wiring entirely.
It's
right?
just the same way as the Earth goes around the sun, right? It gets dark on one side, but it'll come back.
Yeah, it's more like if you took the car wiring out of the console and connected all the wires in the wrong spot, and the car's just malfunctioning for a second.
I had one of my buddies call me. He's like, "Hey man," he's getting his rig ready to go like on this like a long distance Utah hunting trip, and he goes, "Hey man, what would happen if I allegedly cross connected my terminals to my battery?
Uh-huh. Hypothetically
asking for a friend.
Let's say I'm out in the woods.
And I was like, it's funny you asked, because when I was like 16, I worked at this auto repair shop in Seattle called German Car Specialist, and they did Mercedes, BMWs, and Audis. And
they
every once in a
before Alex worked there.
That's right. And that's how
hit him with the old Mazookin special. It's only $49.99.
Every once in a while, these cars, the batteries would be dead on them, and I don't know if it's a mechanical thing or because they were left outside. There's a lot of them, and so we'd have this jumper box, a boost pack that you could you charge, then you bring it over and you defibrillate the car basically.
Yeah.
And I remember and Mercedes specifically had the batteries in the trunk of the car. And it's, dark over there. They made it all nice. So it's not as clear. It was like, here's red, here's black.
Yeah.
And so one time, nothing was labeled.
It's in German.
And so I lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, that thing. And a little smoke came out. Not smoke, but a smell. And so the car did start. And so
there's smell, there's smoke. That's what they say.
I left it overnight there. Told my boss, hey.
Gotta let it charge. Gotta let that sucker soak.
I left the terminals on. Maybe it just needs to charge a little bit more.
Still not starting. I don't know. Just come back tomorrow and see how
So
it
my
goes.
boss is like, hey man, that cost us $6,000 to repair because apparently it fried a bunch of the cables through.
Yeah, no, you got her.
So
you got her good. So I've done it. I've also crossed the cables wrong.
So what happened to you?
I was replacing a car stereo, and I had the terminals off, and then I put them back on backwards, and it instantly fried. No, it was a jump. I fried the car stereo doing a jump backwards.
Really?
Yep.
And that's enough power, because I would imagine the wires in the back of the stereo are just like low voltage, 12 volts or something.
It might be that there's a fuse that's like in the stereo that maybe the whole thing wasn't totaled, but I mean, I can't access that and just replace it. So, maybe, I don't know, $150 stereo or something. So that thing fried, cables smoked for a little bit. Yeah, I've also connected. I tried to do. I was doing the whole Fast and Furious thing in high school. Like, weren't we all?
What was the car? What was the car of choice?
You'll be impressed. It was a Hyundai Accent.
Nice. Nobody's doing those, so you're like, I might as well lead the pack.
Yeah, it's a 2000 Hyundai Accent, and I've actually won a car show with it, by the way.
Whoa.
It was a church car show. So it was,
the guys that entry, they're not a lot.
I won the import division. It was a lot of American
the
cars.
The Korean division?
No, the import.
I know, the import, the Korean. Usually it's Japanese
the subdivision.
Cars.
Yeah, you got to break it down. No, it was me.
You won the Caribbean edition.
It was me and like a 60s Carmen Ghia in the import division.
What's a Carmen Ghia? That sounds familiar.
Carmen Ghia
is that the Volkswagen thing?
It's kind of got like submarine-y looking. It's got like a bulbous center and then like two kind of. It's almost like a little pontoon boat. It's
but it's not Volkswagen.
It's like a little two-seater. No, it's more like an MG but with like round shape to it. It's an interesting little car.
Interesting. So that was your competition?
That was my competition in the import division, and yeah. And so I won. I had it all, decked out. It was black. I had like blacked out emblems and had like rims.
Murdered. We call that murdered.
And I thought it was so cool. I had my my guitar that was also black and white leaning up against it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I know. I thought I was slick. So.
That's is that cheating if you're bringing guitars into this?
You got to bring props. The Carmen Ghia lady was using a little miniature Carmen Ghia as an RC car and driving it around. You got to bring props.
Yeah.
The old timers, they have those little rag dolls that lean up against the car and they look like they're crying against the car.
What? I've never heard of that.
This is a whole thing.
That's creepy.
There's a whole industry. Yeah.
One guy has this like inflatable doll.
Or they set the little old school tray like you were at a diner, like a drive-in movie.
Theater, yeah.
So you got to prop it up.
It's very 50s.
You got to do props. You can't just show up with a Camaro. You got to put your previous trophies all around it, and you got to set out.
You got your 4-H trophy. You got your spelling bee pin. You're like, I'm breaking everything we got.
Exactly. Well, my case, and I didn't have any previous awards, so
no.
Got to put the guitar out there and say, maybe that'll win an award.
You got more comments on the guitar than you got on the car.
Sweet Telecaster, man. I'm voting for you. It's American guitar. That's interesting.
With a Korean car.
Are you in the import division or not? So it was an American-made Telecaster too. So
I'm in the immigrant division.
It would have been, maybe more appropriate if it was a Mexican Telecaster.
Right.
Then I could say I'm strictly in the import division.
So how much effort did you put into your car? So you said you got the
all right, but what we got to do is, we got to go back and say I was putting in the little lights. Like I wanted little neon lights to come out of little, like in the floor area, in the magazine racks, and I was wiring all that myself.
Magazine racks?
Yeah, well, magazine rack is like the little holder inside the door.
Oh, okay.
I guess. Yeah. I think of it as a magazine.
I thought it's just obviously like a door compartment.
A gun holder for you, maybe. Is that where you put your gun?
I did.
I mean, I never put a magazine there, I guess. So if I think about it, it doesn't make sense to call it that. But maybe you're
you shouldn't be driving and reading magazines.
Pull out your Vogue, and maybe it's.
If anything is a magazine holder, it's behind the car seat, the driver's seat. The little pouch in the back.
Yeah, that's where you put.
That's a magazine.
That's where you put the old map.
The old Chilton goes there.
No need for those anymore. So anyway, I just go and I plug in, like I straight plug the wires into the terminals of the battery because I wasn't smart enough to figure out how. I think I tried to splice into certain wires within the console already, and I just couldn't figure it out. Like it's not my gift for electrical.
Electrical is hard, man. I don't mess with it.
I couldn't figure out. I wanted it to, of course, be a simple clip in, splice into something, so that when you turn the key on, it's power on, and you can switch it on or whatever. So I couldn't get that to work. So I'm just like, plug it straight into the battery, and instantly all of where there was wire was now just smoke. So
really?
the whole car was full of smoke.
Jeez.
And so I don't know if that was backwards, or if that was just because I plugged it in, didn't have a fuse in place,
it's supposed to be
too
like
much
that.
power. Who knows? Yeah, that's what it does. That's what it's supposed to do.
I have a story with not frying anything, but though I already have shared one of those. But it was installing a CD player into my little racer car when I was in high school, a little Honda Civic, and we got the little harness. We're connecting the new aftermarket stereo, and everything was done. And we listened to it. It worked. And then I was like, "Cool, thanks, Dad." And then I went off for like a drive, and I was like, "The thing won't turn on." And didn't find out how to turn it on until you have to turn your wipers on in order to turn your stereo on.
There it is.
So we piggyback
got the wrong wire.
Yeah. So you'd see me on a bright blue day, wipers going.
Music banging though.
Music banging. The rubber's already burned off the wipers. You just metal to glass. But you got the Ja Rule going, and you're good. You're doing fine.
I like it. What year was the Civic?
96 EX.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, 96 and 7 are like that's the prime.
The two-door coupes. Now, it was automatic. Here's the unfortunate part.
That is sad.
My dad wouldn't let me have an manual. Mm-hmm. And so I had to do this thing where we had to put like the shifter knob, like more like an aftermarket one.
With the clicker.
The clicker on top instead of the side. And you would do this where you go drive,
like
you go
carbon fiber.
Yes, you would accelerate, throw it to neutral, and then put it back into drive to at least give it the illusion that you're working the gears.
That sounds like that illusion will be over very soon. You'll be using no gears.
Yeah, it was. But that was cool. That was a cool time growing up because that was a time that you learned how to drive a stick because you wanted to because of Fast and the Furious. Mm-hmm. So I remember learning how to drive a stick in like my cousin's 1992 Honda Civic EX Coupe. Hatchback.
Oof.
And that car has taught numerous amount of people how to drive. And the amount of clutches that the thing went through. What'd you learn how to drive a stick on?
That's a good question. I think it was that Hyundai Accent.
The Hyundai Accent.
Yeah. So my first car, my dad used my turning 16 as an excuse to buy another Mustang. And so all the Mustangs were automatics. It was a 96 Mustang, and he had a 66, I think at the time. My brother had an 84. He's obviously a big Mustang kind of collector guy. And so that was an automatic. And I think the next car I got, it was almost like out of spite. Like I'm like, I don't want to be an American car, muscle car, Mustang kind of guy, which I'd love to point out something, by the way, here in a second. So I was like, I'm going full on Japanese or Korean. I'm getting out of here, and I'll get a little racer. So I got the 90 horsepower Hyundai Accent to really stick it to him.
Did I hear that correctly? Your dad got you a Mustang, or he got himself a Mustang that you could use?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's like, I didn't ask for a Mustang. He, it was more like,
Here you go.
Happy turning 16, son. But yeah, I think he always kind of looked at Mustangs as like investments.
Yeah.
And as long as I was growing up, they never made us. They never made our family any money. But
right, but that's such a cool factor. It's also very Britney Spears.
It is, and I don't want to sound ungrateful. Like I wasn't like an ungrateful kid that said, oh, Dad, you got me a Mustang. I was super happy that I had a Mustang. But it was also kind of like, it was understood like this isn't really yours. I got this to
hold on for it.
You get to drive it, right. But in the case, we moved from Indiana to Washington, so we kind of offloaded the cars when we moved anyway. We didn't bring them all with us. So that was how I ended up with a Hyundai Accent at the end.
So when the coolest car I had when I was about 19. So my dad used to buy cars on auctions, right, when they were totaled and wrecked. And then he would rebuild them, and then we would drive them. And so these are nice cars. These are just, somebody got in a car accident, insurance took the car, they auctioned it off, rebuilt salvage titles.
Okay.
And so every car that we've ever owned was from there. In fact, my dad we had multiple Toyota Camrys at different times, like 97 ones. Mm-hmm. And we had a few that had like straight up cut down the middle.
Yeah, it's burgundy in the front, it's navy blue in the back.
Exactly, and welds and everything. And the coolest car I ever had was a 1998 Audi A4, and it was a manual.
Yeah.
And now there's a little bit of backstory I have to give, is because this sounds like a really fun story, but it's one of those like
not. It's horrible.
It's like one of those you watch a movie where you have to watch the end before you watch the before you understand the beginning.
I've never seen. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It starts with like
Inception,
a middle Inception, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened? So here I am driving this really cool 1998. An Audi, all my friends think it's cool. The ladies are fond of it.
Yeah.
So then I get this thing in the mail. My mom's like, hey, you're summoned to go to court, like Seattle District Court. And I was like, what? I didn't get any tickets.
Yeah, somebody else's record on this salvage title.
Well, hold on a second. I wish that was
sorry.
No. So I was like, it's probably nothing, whatever. So I go to the thing. I go to the courtroom hearing, and they're like, you are being charged. Keep in mind, this is Seattle. You're getting charged with reckless driving. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I never got a reckless driving. Now, this is where the story kicks back 2 years before that. I was driving that 1996 Honda Civic 2 months after. So this is 18, 19. Okay, so 16, I get this car. And I'm late on my curfew. It's like 10:30. I'm supposed to be home 10. Mm-hmm. I'm smashing down the freeway in Auburn in Seattle, and at one point I'm looking, it's like 110 miles an hour, right? Now, idiot 16-year-old kid, right? But it's like almost 11 o'clock at night. There's not a lot of people on the road. My dad's blowing up my phone. He's pissed. He's like, you're going to get a bunch of trouble for not getting home on time. Boom, blue lights. Last thing I look is I'm doing 110. I pull over. I have a radar detector in the car. It didn't work. It was like one of those cheap ones.
But it worked to get you an extra charge.
An extra charge, yeah.
That's what it's best at.
Exactly. And so I pull over, and I'm losing my mind. I go, sir, I'm so sorry. My dad was going to kill me.
Straight to jail.
No, it was more complicated than that. Because I'm basically sobbing, right? So I give him my driver's license. He never even went back to his car with it. I gave him the license and insurance. I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, when'd you get your license? It was like 2 months ago, and he points at the radar detector. You already got one. Already got one of those. Like, meaning he knows that I'm up to no good now. So he never leaves my car. He takes a little sticky note out of his pocket, jots something down on my license, gives it back to me, and says something along the lines of like, well, you need to learn your lesson or something like that.
Yeah.
Slow down, go. So
send you this bill when you're 18.
Well, right. So I was like, thank you so much. Get on my way, go home. My dad chews me out, grounds me, the whole shebang. I'm living my life beautifully, telling everybody the story.
Yeah.
How
you got away with it.
For 2 years, I got away with it. Then I go to court. They're getting processed. I lawyer up. My dad makes me sell my car to pay for this lawyer.
Dang.
And I guess the whole thing was that in Seattle, because their court system was so backdated, who knew, that they could still prosecute you up to 4 years.
Huh?
So that was my thing. And I can't tell you how many times I told that story to people. Like, I got away and they let me go. And count my lucky stars. And we laughed and this happened. So my dad makes me sell this car. And I had to drive beaters, not to knock on beaters. There's a humbling experience after driving in an Audi. But the beaters that I had were $600 cars off of Craigslist. They were 1992 Ford Taurus. They were a Mercury Tracer. Basically, any kind of car that has a bench seat up front.
Ladies not appreciating that as much.
Not appreciating until the last car I landed on. Like I had 3 beaters before I had a decent car after that. Finally, I got my ticket back to society. And the last beater, which was kind of like a cool beater, it was a 1993 Ford Escort station wagon.
Wood grain?
Forest green, forest dark green, but that was a manual. So that was my first time, well, not after the Audi, to kind of get back and be like, Daddy's home.
Yeah.
Shifting gears. Shifting gears.
Okay. It kind of sounds like a vehicle you'd take to a demolition derby and use in reverse, right?
Exactly.
You're just pounding people with that big old hatchback and
that's a vehicle that there is half a gallon of antifreeze in the back, the coolant in the back of your trunk because you need to top that baby off. You're always adding oil to it. But hey, man, it was, I don't want to say it was a humbling experience or a great lesson learned because I didn't learn anything.
Didn't learn a thing. Just
it would have been
had a lot of cool cars, a lot of cool times.
And then
money for nothing, chicks for free.
Exactly. So, yeah, that was my car stories, man.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, when you talked about coming back on here, I feel like the segue I kind of left dangling back there a little bit about the whole marriage thing is that I had some thoughts I want to bounce off.
Yeah,
of you.
let's hear it because you're a pro now. You've been married for a month.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're writing a novel.
Well, I'm not trying to tell your audience my thoughts on marriage. Did you get any responses to the story call outs about like, let's let Rich and Alex fix all your relationship woes?
Oh, I forgot to do that. I forgot
that explains why we didn't get any of that stuff.
Yeah. That's going for the thumbnail.
Just did a little pose for the camera.
Right.
I can see that.
So tell me, how's the one?
The thought process was that I recently had to write my vows. And so in doing so, I got to reflect a lot on love and relationships. And I thought that like, if there's something that I can just like get lost on and babble on forever, it's kind of like definitions and semantics and epistemology and stuff. So I thought I would bounce off some of these ideas with you about like, what is love? Yeah, would be a great example.
Should we start with what consciousness is first before we get to love?
I mean,
I just got done with Jordan Peterson's the 12 rules for life.
The first 12 rules.
The first 12 rules. Yeah. So I literally just finished it today.
Okay.
So I'm fresh on all this stuff.
Did you know? Well, there's a whole second book you can dive into. There's another 12
I'm gonna let that digest. I'm gonna let that soak. I might revisit a few chapters.
I kind of think it's like did you listen or read?
I listened.
Okay, I listened as well, and I think they're like lectures. They're like college lectures, and I'll be driving and I'll think, oh no, I stopped paying attention for 2 minutes, and I'm lost, and I gotta back up and start again. And he's definitely a big influence in the like figuring out, like pointing to things with words and then discussing like what other concepts and words are attached to those presuppositions. So
it's interesting how he also ties in like biblical stories.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
It almost helps you understand those biblical stories of Cain and Abel or the fall or whatever a little bit more because he's bringing a psychological approach to what that could potentially apply to your life.
Yeah.
Which I don't know is he a religious man? I don't.
So this is a great question. Yeah. And I have my own theory on this, and I think I don't know if I even mentioned this before, but I think if you really pinned him down and tried to paint him into a corner, I think you would get an interesting answer. Because if you say like, what is God, Jordan? Then or is God real? Maybe is even better.
That's a
question.
More clear because if he said what is God, he would probably say it's absence of chaos or absence of order.
So you would ask, is God real? And he would dance around and say, well, you've got two really important definitions to make. One is real and one is God. And so now let's start talking about what you mean by both of those words. And then maybe if we ever resolve either of those, I can answer your question, which was, are these two things equated? So is God real means is one equal one? Or like, is this an equated thing? Are these two things equal by the word meaning is? Yeah. So and then you're just lost in semantics forever because if you try to address what is reality and then you try to address what is God, you'll never ever come back to a circle.
Absolutely.
So I personally think it comes if you painted him into a corner and said, okay, you want to dance around all these questions. I'll make it really, really easy for you. Will you say that Jesus Christ came back to life? He was dead and then came back to life and was seen by hundreds of people, as the Bible claims. Like that's a question that's like, let's pin your answer on something extremely specific then.
Yeah.
And then I think you would get some I don't know. And
it's interesting how he can dance around that, right?
Because I think the answer is no. I think the answer is you do not believe what the Bible believes. You say things that are biblical, kind of, but then like the people in the Bible, the stories in the Bible do not believe what you think about the Bible.
Yeah.
So like you think the Bible tells you these sort of analytic or these sort of analogies and these sort of archetypical truths. That's not what Paul said.
Right. You're saying that's what he believed? That he doesn't believe that?
Yeah. I say that Jordan believes a certain thing that he thinks Christianity is true because it's in this abstract sort of sense of truth.
Right.
And I'm over here saying, well, that's not what Christianity says that it believes. Like you think you see something very different.
Yeah, it's so easy to get lost, but yet at the same time kind of understand where he's coming from. So like the fall and being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and then that's the same chapter he's talking about order and chaos. He kind of leads you towards this path of kind of applying the Bible, at least the Old Testament stories, as more of like along the lines of like Plato or Galileo, like taking a lot of these like artistic expressions and stories of Greek mythology.
And a lot of the conclusions are about self-actualization, about you becoming a person and setting purpose in your life and going to do things and then establishing for yourself what you think are values and ethics and like these foundational things.
What are your thoughts on his the first 12 rules? Did you feel like so you're gonna ask, we're gonna lead this conversation about like what important things you should put into vows and how important they are, or what kind of meaning is given to them, right? Let's say, so if you're gonna have to write on one piece of paper like these vows, and they're gonna give tremendous amount of meaning towards this person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, well, it's like then you got to really pick and choose the most important things. Do you feel like Jordan did that? Do you feel like when the rules of like, stand up straight with your shoulders?
This is a good question. So like, in a way, and I'll say it another way, in the way I thought of like expressing my vows to an audience is like trying to give them a 2-minute trailer of a 2-hour movie. It's like there's a ton of things I want to say and could say about my wife and my fiance at the time, and the ways I want to express to people what I think about her, what she's done for me, and why I'm standing here. And I don't have time for any of that. You guys are watching me. I've got like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So I've got to pick and choose the absolute things that I think could maybe get you there the fastest, or at least just admit that I can't do it and say, I'm going to tell you one thing and just remember that. And so I think in the book, you're kind of like saying the same thing, whereas Jordan's thoughts on life might be an entire, in which he's got recorded, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours. It might take 100 hours to even kind of start to understand his whole picture, but he's going to, 30 hours of reading a book, he's going to try to break it down, get you the most important nugget. I think that's a good way of looking at it. And I think the rules that he chose are definitely a really good start.
Yeah.
Things that are sort of shoulds and oughts without kind of connecting to the old-fashioned shoulds and oughts. Things like you talk about, stand up straight with your back, like
shoulders
project. Project yourself in a
don't be cowardly when it comes to
a brave way, I guess, in an organized way, and things like make a room in your house as
clean
ornate,
and tidy,
clean and tidy, but also as ornate. Appreciating things like cleanliness and art, and sort of moves into the second book is kind of, it has a feel that it's sort of a rebuttal to this like cancel culture or this rejection of authority and hierarchies of like, that's a hierarchy, so it's just naturally bad. Those are rules, so they're just naturally, we want to reject them. And where people are kind of moving to that and saying like, well, it doesn't matter if I really go out and make something of myself. What does it really matter if I'm in a relationship or not? Or like, it's all the same, and you can't really point to where one direction is better than another. So I'll just make none, or I'll just stay as a potential being. And I think the second book is a lot about like demonstrating why it's better to pick a direction, and like the fact of movement and direction and establishing purpose is better than resting in a place of, even if it is potential, even if you are a great potential person, but you're not doing something.
Yeah, one thing I recognized from his rules is it kind of painted a certain type of picture, and maybe a lot of these rules, the first rules, came from people who are in desperate need of psychiatric help, right? So,
or even just a kick in the pants to say, get off your couch. And,
right. That's exactly I guess where I'm kind of going with. And so, but I one of the rules that really resonated with me, and we can dive in a little bit of this, because I was talking to Irina about this a few months ago. The person that I am today, and I think everybody would agree with this, but I feel like I'm echoing this even more towards myself. The person that I am today is a complete day and night person than when we first got married 10 years ago. And you could say that about everybody, right? You could say, well, I'm more patient. I'm now interested in this. That applies to everybody. But for me, my mental place has changed drastically in the last 10 years. And I 100% attribute that to the content that I'm consuming, like on the Joe Rogan's podcast, where you have Jocko Willink, you have the David Goggins, you have the Cameron Haynes, you have people who are doing extraordinary, difficult things and are signing up to do those difficult things. And then I caught myself, because that's the content I'm consuming, I found myself going towards that direction and doing difficult things because they're doing it. Like I started running. So running was like the first thing that kind of made me conquer my inner bitch, like Rogan would say. And so while I'm listening to these motivational people, while doing these difficult things, it started shaping my mind so much so that I don't recognize the me from, in fact, I don't recognize me from 5 years ago than I am the me today, because there's a huge change that happened. And so one of Jordan's rules, and I think it applies to so many people, that resonates with where my life is now, is consider yourself as somebody who you're responsible to take care of, right? So there's a lot of people who do things that are self-destructive, whether they eat crappy food, they drink too much alcohol, they're around negative people that gossip or slander, or what. They're around people who they don't fit in with. They're constantly, are like one of his rules is, are constantly living in chaos, and there's no order at all. And so I think that part really reminded me that, consider yourself to be somebody that you're responsible to taking care of, to constantly evolve and better yourself, and compare yourself to who you are today. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who you expected to be today. Like, that was one of the most powerful things I took away from that book.
And there's a little bit built into that rule, is a little bit of the put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. Like, you can't help everyone from a position of desperation or need yourself.
Taking
care of yourself is one of the best ways to take care of others. And it's hard to accept, especially for people who have a lot more empathy, or who maybe grew up, trying to be more altruistic, or maybe even looking down on people who are greedy, or, trying to say you shouldn't go, try to make money, or you shouldn't have possessions. But in a way, and and Steve Harvey has a thing where he says, my father gave me really good advice to say the best thing you can do for poor people is not be one of them. And if you give all your money away, then you'll just be right back at square one. So there's just chiming in a little bit on that same thought of taking care of yourself is, it's counterintuitive, but is one of the most altruistic things you can do, is put yourself in a position to help.
Isn't it interesting how when you do try to help other people, and let's say you already did get your stuff figured out, right? Let's say you've already are in the process of helping yourself and you're doing good, and you're now helping other people. It's extremely draining, right? When somebody is not taking your piece of advice that you might consider maybe some level of wisdom from experience, or maybe from, some resources that you found. But when you're exhausting yourself to help other people, and Jordan said this, and I don't think he said this in this book, but I think it was one of the viral clips that were out there. He says, when you talk to people, if they're not listening to you, stop talking. You ever heard him say something like that?
Yeah, and Neil deGrasse Tyson had a similar.
Neil deGrasse Tyson? It's like, stop talking, because it devalues your words. And I was like, wow, that's so powerful, because I remember so often, because I'm on this kind of, in the last 5 years, on this like high and kick of like motivation, and you can do anything. Once you do one little thing, you can do anything kind of thing, whether it's business or, endurance wise, that when I try to instill, like have this conversation with somebody to like light a spark, and I'm passionate, I'm talking, and we're and they're getting excited, and then nothing happens, then I catch myself just repeating this exact motivational speech, if you will, over and over, and I'm just exhausting myself. My words don't mean anything. It's just words in the wind.
Yeah. Who's to say if the second time's the charm, or if you're wasting your time?
So what have you been learning through some of the ideas that you've been processing through love and what that is?
Yeah. I'm really glad that we're coming back to that, because to do a brief segue, we'll hang on to Jordan for just another minute before we move into our original ideas. Okay. But the idea of when you're using language, when you kind of listen to Jordan after a while, you start to realize like, language is just, like, words are just made up of other words, and you start to kind of erode some of the things that you accept as just a general understanding. Like, okay, so what is good? What is harm? What is truth? You start to realize a lot of these things are built on understandings and agreements. If you that go lower and lower and lower, and if you and I don't agree on one of these sort of foundational things, then we can't be expected to agree on the things that are built on those ideas. And the more things that are the ideas and words and definitions that have the most things leaning on them are our most critical and closely held, firmly held beliefs. So when I started thinking about love, and I was trying to think, okay, well, is it a circumstantial? I guess this is low-hanging fruit, right? Obviously, it's not a circumstantial thing, but is it like a decision? Is it a commitment? It's a combination of that. Okay, well, how do I know if I feel love versus, okay, I just think this is going to work out, or these are really good. It's a great agreement, and a marriage is an agreement in a way, and it's a contract in a way. And I kind of started thinking about sacrifice, and I was like, I think I'm getting warmer. That love is like a sacrifice, but you would make sacrifices for maybe you did it for other purposes. Maybe you did it for gain. Maybe you did it for work. Maybe you made a sacrifice for recognition. So, or you could sacrifice something kind of begrudgingly. And I started to identify that I think for me, and I would love to poke holes at this or see if it resonates with you at all. But the willingness to sacrifice, to me, starts to become love. It's like, if you have to go do something hard, but the reason you're doing it is because you love the other person that's receiving this or is a part of this, it stops feeling like it's hard. It no longer feels like a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So it circulates on itself to where, okay, well, I have to uproot myself and move from one city to another because but that's a big hassle, but yet it's because I'm prioritizing this person. I'm going to move for this person. No longer feels like I'm giving up anything. It just feels like that's what we have to do. Mm-hmm. I have a big expense coming up, or I'm gonna move to in with my partner. I'm gonna any of these things that feel like they're big hassles. When they're in an act of love, they are no longer hassles at all. And so it's in the moment. If you're, I guess I would.
Do you think they're not a hassle? I don't think it's fair to say it's not a hassle anymore. I think maybe the hassle is minimized, right? Because if you wake up with a sick kid in the middle of the night that you're like, we got to go to the ER, you don't go like, yeah, so we're going to the ER. You're still like, I don't want to go to the ER. Like,
do you think you have that?
I have that.
You have that reaction where you say, I don't want to go to the ER?
Yeah, we just recently did that. We recently, my kid, Beckham, he, what did he have? What was hurting? I'm trying to remember. But I think he said his throat or his neck or something like that was hurting. And it was, I was like, let's put,
Was it because you felt like it might not be necessary that you didn't
There's a
want
level
to
to that. Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a different story. If I truly felt that his life was
absolutely
endangered, I'd be like, no.
You'd wake up. We're going.
We're doing whatever.
Yeah.
But when you kind of go like, it's midnight, you can only go to the ER. He's complaining his ear hurt. That's what it is. Ear's not life and death, right?
Yeah.
But his pain is the biggest issue. Now, I've already given him 3 different doses, pretty close together, of like Tylenol.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, I'm going probably encroaching in some harmful territories. So that stuff's not working. Okay, well, it's midnight. Well, what am I going to... The ER is not designed for me to come in and be like, my kid's ear hurts. They're just going to give him a stronger medicine, right? They're not going to be like, we need to go rush it now. I'm sure that has happened ever. So I was filled with that feeling of like, can't go to primary health because they're closed. I was like, I'm going to feel like an idiot. So I still dragged my feet because he woke up moaning, right? Your kid's moaning. There's nothing you can do. Like, you've exhausted. So I'm getting, okay, buddy, let's get in the car. And we're driving. And he falls asleep right before we hit like the parking lot. And I was like, I'm not going to wake up a kid to go, he needs to be in the ER. Yeah. He's not supposed to be in the ER. And so we turned right back around. He got it overnight, and then but the feeling still stays there.
What if your kid was crying in pain and he got up and said, Dad, I really need to go for a car ride, and that will take away my pain?
That's me rolling my eyes. I can't. Like, it's still a huge inconvenience. See, I like that we went to the kid territory, right? Because I know the feelings you're talking about, and the feelings of, well, because
I had to do a similar thing where Marin had just had a really bad heartburn in the middle of the night, and so it's like, I want to go to sleep and I want to but she's not going to get in the car and go get her own heartburn medicine. So I get up and go get the heartburn medicine.
Right, but
and that's,
does that feeling
in that
of
case,
like
I know that it's the only way that this situation is going to be fixed, and I think that's where the difference comes in, where it's like, the ER wasn't the only situation that was going to fix this. Like, you kind of knew there were other options, and this was a little silly that we were going to the ER.
Right.
But like, if it wasn't, if your kid woke up and had his ear hanging off by the skin,
then we're running.
You'd say, we're going to the ER, and I'm not going to count it as like a begrudging.
Right.
This is not a chore.
It's hard for me to empathize with people. Like, because it's hard because empathy is putting yourself in the position of where they are to understand it, right? Like,
or just feeling what they're
feeling, right? So it's difficult for me to do that, because oftentimes, if it's like an adult, right? So like, Irina used to have like chronic headaches that she doesn't have them anymore. A lot of my things were tension related. When we were first married, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, like, that you're feeling this. But then when now there's multiple kids and you're stretched, around, and you had a labor intensive day at work, you kind of go, well, listen, because with me, it's like, if something hurts, I'm like, I'm going to take some whiskey. I'm going to like ride this thing out, and then I will go see like a doctor or something like that if it's necessary. But like, the way I'll deal with a headache is I'll have a few whiskeys and the headache's going to go away. So to me, I think it's difficult to empathize with people that I'm not saying they don't want to be tough, but maybe I feel like they're putting too much into this. I don't know. I might sound like a complete dick about this.
No, I think I would just word that as skepticism. You're skeptical that the action is necessary. And if it's not, necessary, then it is a waste of time.
Yeah. Right, because we just did a comparison of saying like, the ear's hanging off, we're running to the hospital.
But I would say, especially with an adult, especially with your partner, especially with your partner you have to see every day, and you have to be accountable to them, and you're gonna have to talk about this if you end up being wrong. I would probably rather say like, okay, maybe I guess I would wake up in a situation saying, okay, she really needs me to do this thing. It's really inconvenient, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, because I definitely don't want to be wrong and to be like, no, you don't need that.
Right.
And then because I was either begrudging about it or just didn't want to deal with the hassle, I'm wrong. And now she needed that medicine, she needed the service, or she needed that thing. It's like, I guess I would look at that and say, in this definition, I kind of wonder, is like, do I love her in that situation if I'm just more concerned with the inconvenience versus the option that I might be right?
So how would we be, I mean, maybe we're asking the same questions, like, but how would we be defining what love is? Is love the fact that you would do something for somebody when it's inconvenient, or the fact that there's a part of you that doesn't feel like it's an inconvenience, you just want to do it?
That's the part. That's the part I think. So, and to give you an analogy, and I hate to use two like biblical analogies now. I don't want everything to be about biblical analogies, but I was trying to think of a way when I was doing my actual vow writing. I was trying to think of a way to describe it to the audience in an analogy. I could only think of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, where it's like, I don't really want to go to the cross, take this cup from me kind of thing, but he does anyway. And it doesn't mean it's not difficult, but it was a willingness, like stepped forward willingly. Nobody had to say, all right, fine, well, I'll pay you to do it. Or, no, you have to, or I'm going to kill you. Or, it didn't have to be told again. It's like, I don't really want to, but I'm going to. And in that act, it doesn't feel like, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the guy's head. So I don't know if it felt like a huge inconvenience or not, but I kind of get the impression that, I know that when I do something, and I obviously haven't sacrificed my life in torture, but I think plenty of people would, step in front of the car or the bus or whatever for their kid. You'd run out there and you wouldn't think twice about it, push your kid out of the way of a truck, and then you'd get hit you'd be in the hospital saying, I know this is an inconvenience, but it doesn't feel like, it feels like the right thing to do. I wouldn't take it back. I'm not begrudging. I don't think, when I think about my son who I pushed out of the way of that car, I don't think, oh man, like you put me in the hospital. I wish you'd listen to me more or whatever.
Well, I think it's easier to describe this inconvenience or the lack of inconvenience when it comes to love in extreme cases, right? So like you said, either Jesus going to the cross or stepping in front of your kid, a car, or ear hanging off, let's go to the ER. Like, it's easier to go extreme cases, but and the little things are easier when you're kind of fresh inside of it, right? So, I remember my wife even tells me like this now. She's like, you used to like empathize a lot more when I wasn't feeling anything like that, like in the earlier stages. And I agree. And I don't know, is it time? Is it 10 years of marriage? Is it 10 years of marriage and kids? Is it because I hold myself to a certain standard of like try to like push through? Whatever it is, I definitely at the end of the day come out as an asshole. I do, and I'm very apologetic about it. I try to really, like if she's feeling sick from like, let's say the flu, but she's not critical, and and she's kind of, she'll stare at me and kind of like give me the puppy eyes. I'm kind of laser point vision where I'm like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. Okay, Kyle's coming, we get it. Like, I'm almost like in tunnel vision. And we had to have a talk about this where I told, she's like, you used to be far more empathetical. And I apologize. I was wrong completely. But I was like, how about, and I tried to explain where I'm coming from. And she's like, well, can you at least, like, when it's the weekend? I was like, yes, I promise that if it's like the weekend, I'll try to hold myself to a standard of like not being distracted by anything else and empathizing, at least trying to empathize with you to like allow for you to feel that the moment of like togetherness there. But if I was to define what love is, because it's a little bit clearer for me when it's not just towards a person that you get butterflies for, that you feel, camaraderie with, a person who you can share memories with, a person you could share time with. But it's a little bit different because now you have to stretch the feeling of like, well, what about kids? And kids will be an inconvenience always to you, or at least some of the actions are inconvenient. But then I asked myself, why do I do these things for them when I don't feel like it? Well, I think there's a level of feeling, and this applies to both a partner or kids, is you feel there's a level of you inside of them that you have to, like, there's a part of them that is you.
I kind of thought you were going to the route of an obligation.
Right, like you're obligated, like, you're obligated because that's you, and you're obligated to help you. So by you helping them, you're helping yourself. And so
I don't mean to get too meta on you, but you could make the argument that everyone else is also you.
You're talking about the theory of many worlds,
just getting,
quantum
just getting a little bit zen on
quantum mechanics, quantum mechanics. So break that off.
Well, that's a different tangent.
That's a different, okay.
Yeah, that's even longer than this tangent. Yeah. We're on a very specific one right now.
So, and I'm sure there's a lot more words that we can start breaking down of what love is, because, right? So like you have the Greeks that have like the agape love and all the other loves, but like when it comes to like a love for your spouse.
Yeah, almost more, it made me think of it as a question of like, what's a moment that you decide that you love that person, or you realize that you love that person? I think when you have a baby, it's instantly. So maybe that's different. That's a love I haven't necessarily understood yet, because it doesn't involve a choice. Or maybe it does involve a choice. Yeah. I kind of feel like you typically think of parenthood as a choice to abandon a kid, not a choice to love them.
There's a level of the oneness maybe, and this kind of goes back to a piece of you is inside of them, is there's a level of oneness, because like if you were to ask me, and I'm thinking back right now because you just got married, and I'm recalling my wedding day and all that stuff, and I've been engaged before, you've been married before, yep. And we've dated many other people before, and so there's moments that we've told people that we love them, that are not our spouses now, and so then what were we telling those people? Did we just like them? Did we really, really like them? And then now we love this person. And so now I'm kind of playing this timeline in my head. Okay, I married Irina 10 years ago. I'm remembering that feeling that we were getting married, and I'm seeing her now. And I actually was recalling this yesterday. I was walking in my backyard, and I was thinking to myself, I love my family. And I think it's such a perfect family that I think a lot of people don't experience a level of perfection. And the perfectness of it is like, I love my wife so much. She's such a perfect spouse for me because she laughs with me. She's incredibly funny. She communicates. She's very lighthearted. She sees the best in me. She sees the best in people. She always gives me the benefit of the doubt. She doesn't start problems. Everything around her and my relationship or an exchange with her is always nothing but positive. Even when it is negative, the negative causes me to apologize for something that I did wrong, and I don't mind that, right? Like the same way she said you used to empathize more, that when she confronted me, I clearly was like, yeah, I was, and I'm really sorry, and I'm going to try to be better. Yeah. And then I go, my kids, I was like, they're such perfect kids. Beckham is so creative, and he always wants to be around me. Jack is so athletic and smart, and he always wants to be around him, and I want to be around him. And my daughter, she's the cutest thing in the world. And so you go like, there's people who don't want to be at home, and they want to find ways, like excuses to go do this, do that. Yeah. And I'm the opposite. I was like, I want to be home. I want to be around them. And so that's like, I'm trying to figure out what that feeling is, and why is it that feeling called love? Because that's the only human word.
Okay, that's what we're doing. Right. And I would ask you to see if you can point your finger on something. So is love just an accumulation of these boxes that are checked? Probably not. That makes her a really great partner to you, but that isn't telling you that you love her. That's true, yeah. It's not a feeling. That's not a thing that happened in you. Those are just facts about her and what kind of person she is.
Yes.
So I think there's something else to be considered in terms of, because there's people who have a great partner, have whoever might have been dating her before had access to that same great woman, and I don't think it's a matter of just he wasn't the perfect compatibility to reciprocate that. There's something missing in terms of what he did or did not love. And the kids, I had a comment that I wanted to chime in on as well.
Well, it sounds like I tolerate her, so I think.
I guess
so the kids.
You said something about.
Well, they're smart.
You had there was a point of willingness in there that you even mentioned.
The willingness to do something, like take him to the hospital or take him to.
But you didn't. I forget. I wish I could play back the video.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to.
I wish you could play it back, and I can go back to the point where what you just said, and I'll listen to this in the car. And
let me help you see if we can get to that place. I was telling about how the desire to do something that's inconvenient for me, the desire to not want to be inconvenienced is still there. Is just not as big. Is that anywhere? And does that
maybe I'll just try to I'll freeform this a little bit. So I think that you at one point when you're in your relationship, your priorities start completely shifting, where it's like you've got your life and your plans and your career and all these other things are kind of taking hold, and then a woman or partner inserts somewhere in the middle of that, and you're like, okay, you're more important than a lot of things in my life. But if push came to shove and you moved to Austin and I got called to go do this thing over here in Alaska, then goodbye. And then there's some point where it goes from like the person's asking permission to be involved in your life to an assumption where you're always going to be a part of each other's lives. And then one more phase where maybe not everybody's in this kind of thing, where we're sort of more like, it feels like I have to ask permission to be away from your life, because now obviously you have a lot more responsibilities, you have a lot more weight to carry. And so there's a shift that changed where the dynamics of your relationship changed. Maybe you never said anything, you never spoke anything about it. It just all of a sudden, one day I'm just texting you, hey, I want to go on this trip with my buddies on the weekend. What do you think? And you don't even catch yourself that like, oh, you wouldn't have done that. The last trip you took, you didn't ask her about it. You said, hey, I'm leaving on May 5th to go to this thing. And so somewhere along the lines, it shifted without anybody ever putting their finger on to say why or how or what's that made out of. And so I think this is and maybe it's a pointless exercise to most people because you just understand what love is, or you just say, I love this person, a bit like saying that's blue, and you don't have to necessarily connect a bunch of dots and say it's just foundational, like that's blue, I see it, it's empirical. And maybe to people, love is an intuitive, empirical thing. But I kind of like to analyze it and say, there is a choice here when you're marrying someone. Why her? Why not that person? Why did that relationship not work out? Why not wait for something else? How do you know you're not, like, you've got this whole huge list that's all checked off that you mentioned for Irina. So, we got to put your finger somewhere on there and say, that's where I made my decision. And to me, it was when I started to say things that maybe should feel like burdens aren't burdens. And
did you feel that in your previous relationships?
For sure.
Relationships,
for sure.
Okay.
I would think if I told anyone that I loved them, that I felt that same thing. I don't think in fact, I was very guarded about using the word love because I had reservations about, say, hey, I was with somebody for 4 years and I heard I love you. And I felt very connected and had a very deep relationship. And it ended up, I don't doubt that any of that was true. It just ended up not working. So it ended up not mattering. And if it was like, so then I have this very linear logic of like, well, okay, if these words are in place and these actions are in place and it still comes to an outcome you don't like, then there's a variable in here that I need to make sure I control or figure out for the next time. And, and just kind of, you can get stuck spinning your wheels on trying to logically order things when the human heart and human psyche aren't necessarily X plus Y equals Z.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, and I mean, human words are just, they're sounds that we make, right? So love, though, is a very important word.
That point to something.
Right, they do point.
That's the important part.
But we go, okay, this word is care. Care is when you do help somebody, right? So we've established, we created a sound and we said this is an act of this. That's how you describe that.
And then but then you can always erode that and say, well, can you help someone without caring?
Right.
Okay. Well, now we have a Venn diagram.
How's it different than help, right? So you're right. And so because love is just another one of the words that can be spoken differently in many different languages, you almost have to, the word has to be more packed of descriptive things. But I still believe that the descriptive things somehow point towards a oneness thing, that if you two are one, then you would be treating yourself as if you were that person. That instead of you going, hey, by the way, I'm going to be on this trip on Wednesday, you going, well, would I like if somebody told me, or without kind of giving me a heads up? No, like I kind of like that kind of respect kind of thing. So I go, okay, well, I'm going to treat them like I treat myself. Well, hey, my leg, or I'm nauseous, and what really helps my spouse is when we drive in the car. Well, if I was nauseous, I would want to go drive in the car. So you're putting yourself into their shoes as if you're just one thing. And I think love, and this is not to be offensive too, but I think it's the same way as I'm remembering my wedding day is I didn't know what love was. I thought love was a feeling that you get when you really like being around a person. But I've had that feeling many other times with many other people. So now it's a different feeling with this person. So the question is like, well, what about all those people? Do I still love them because I like being around them? No, I really dislike them because I'm not with them. But what I almost feel like I've grown. First, I really, like and loved Irina, but I feel like the definition of love made more clarity to me in 10 years of marriage with kids to her.
Yeah.
Because there's that connection of oneness of now there's a legacy, now there's a family, now there is seeing her sacrifice for me that I want to reciprocate that sacrifice.
So there's a connection to you in terms of love and oneness and family.
One is a family. So I think I remember there was a biblical word. I don't remember if they were trying to explain what sex was or whatever, but it was describing it as intertwining of souls, right? So what if love is just two souls, whichever, if you want to define what souls are or whatever. So two spirits. Let's say two spirits. You're a spirit, I'm a spirit. Two spirits.
Let's intertwine them, maybe.
Let's French breed that bitch. So as you're twining together to become more of a one thing, and I think that happens over a period of time. That as more time goes by, you start analyzing a lot of things and be like, I do love this person, and I think I understand what love is, and it's an accumulation of things.
I want to challenge that in the sense that people who are less developed in their relationship, they don't have a family yet, they don't have a legacy yet, or they might not even have the maturity and the empathy that you're describing, I think can still have love.
Yeah, but what if I guess I want to correct myself. I don't want to say that you can only experience love when you have kids. But I'm saying, I think time is the only that corner. I think time is the only thing that helps you get to the point of understanding that it is love, or is that just a dopamine reaction in my head that's been going on for 2 years.
And I don't think that love has to be purely a consistent flat level or a purely consistently linear trajectory up either. I think you'll probably have moments of love and not love. Obviously much more stable than things like your contentment with that person or your liking of that person or enjoying their company. I think there's plenty of times when you're not going to necessarily enjoy the company of your kids and your wife. But that's why I kind of still like to fall back onto something foundational. It's like, okay, well, if it goes through the net of that definition, what does it land on? Where it's like, okay, I really can't stand my kids are being a punk today. I've got, friends with grown kids, teenagers, right? Teenagers are just being a jerk. I don't even like being at my house right now. But you still fall back onto something where it's like, I haven't stopped loving my kid. And so, okay, well, maybe some of the questions in my little decision tree would be like, if they, needed bail money right now, or beside the point of teaching them a lesson to stay in jail or something, or they needed help, they needed to go to the hospital, or they needed you in some way, or they called you and said, Dad, I really need a friend to talk to. Something bad just happened. I just lost a friend or something. Like, right? You would go, absolutely, I'll do anything for them. And that's why I think that's why I kind of keep coming back to a willingness where it's like, even if I'm not called to do that yet, even if I haven't been asked to make that sacrifice, or even if I haven't, even they're ignoring me or they're pushing me away or something, I'm still willing. Like in the moment that they were to turn around and reconcile with me, boom, I'm right there. I'm willing to do that. Even if maybe I'm the one who feels hurt or spurned or something, and it's like I need time to figure out when I'm going to be ready to come back and try to mend that or something. I'm still willing to do that.
Have you gotten into a circumstance yet with Maren where she pissed you off? Have you guys fought yet?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean,
no. Truly, be not talking for a couple of days, kind of thing.
There was a kind of a 24-hour kind of talking period, but yeah, I mean, we could dive into what that was, but I think a lot of that was a pretty good misunderstanding.
Okay, so but you got the misunderstanding cleared up later, but in the midst of it. In your eyes, there was no misunderstanding, right? And in her eyes, there's possibly
no. In my eyes, she was misunderstanding me, and in her eyes, I was misunderstanding her, or really, I was misunderstanding a lot about her.
Oh, so when you're like, you're an idiot, you're like, no, you're misunderstanding me. I didn't say
I'm not an idiot. You just misunderstood me.
Yeah. It's like I'm mad at you because you called me an idiot. I said no, I said you're being an idiot. See, you misunderstood me. No, so okay. So I guess my question is like finding the correlation, because with kids, it's a little bit different when you go. The idea of you can love somebody and not like them at that time, right? In this particular time, I love you, but I don't like you.
Well, dude, I think
with the kids, it's like a prodigal son kind of situation where you're like, I'm always going to be there for you. So if you got yourself in trouble with the law, I'm still going to bail you out. Sure, that's easy. But what about with your spouse? What about like if she you guys got in this fight, and then she goes, hey, can you go drive me around? I feel nauseous, right? What is it? Heartburn, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, something
heartburn.
Like that, yeah.
Do you... And you're doing what I'm doing.
It might be a quiet ride. Wow. You might have to have a quiet ride. That's all. But like at the same time, I'm not sitting there like I hate my life right now.
Right. But
I'm not begrudging, and I'm trying. So I guess in that moment you have two options in my mind. If I were, let's play with this. This is a live definition, right? So you and I are molding this together in this moment, right? So if I were to put that into a dichotomy, it's resentment on one end and it's love on the other end. You've spurned me, you've annoyed me, you pushed me out, at least in my understanding of it. And we haven't reconciled this whole situation compared to how you saw it or whatever. But I feel upset for whatever reason. And I'm not very emotional. You can tell I'm overly analytical, and I don't usually get led by emotion. So that's a rare situation that I would be like feeling all distraught about something. I'm sitting in my mind saying, I can't make sense of this situation. I can't reconcile it because your emotions don't seem to line up with my understanding of that reality. Anyway, I would be, in that car, I have two decisions. Do I sit here and resent you because of the way you made me feel, and here I am doing something good for you? Or do I remember that I love you and I made a commitment to you, and this is part of that commitment? And in so doing, it's not just a conclusion I came to, but a resolve, and it actually feels a relief to say, oh yeah, that's right. I resolved that I'm going to do this sort of stuff, and this is just me being tapped on to honor my agreement.
So by you clicking this analytical checkbox says I love, and because I love you, I will do things that are inconvenient for you. Mm-hmm. Is that am I reading that?
And then in so acknowledging that that's when I actually think I feel the resolution of like, this feels right. So to me, when things don't reconcile, I feel tension. That's when I feel anxiety. Mm-hmm. Is like, I can't make sense. Why are you upset? I didn't say the thing you think I said, and this situation doesn't add up in my mind. And if you only knew what I meant, you would agree with me. Like if we agree on the facts, you and I on anything, mm-hmm. if we have a disagreement, originally we're here. But if I just explain my side, like I know it makes sense. So if I just explain it better, you can come to here, and then we go, oh yeah, that's right. I understand you better. You understand me better. And now it feels better. But until we reach that, like that feeling of being misunderstood is where I start to feel tension. So then what I'm getting at, I guess, is that feeling of like everything's peaceful and fine. Mm-hmm. That's when that comes after the reminder of the resolution to say, you love this person, and this is not a sacrifice. This is not a difficult thing to do. This is the biggest priority. There's nowhere else to be. There's nothing else to do. None of these other things matter. You need to, this is where you are.
So are you implying that to love somebody is just a decision that you make, and then once you put them in the category of love, then it comes with a certain level of expectations on your part?
Yeah, I think that, so the expectation kind of goes back to the obligation mm-hmm. concept. And I think that these are very nuanced things, but I think that they're different. Because you can have an expectation and a nuance at your work. I don't love my work. I feel the inconvenience when I have to stay late. This sucks, mm-hmm. but I do it anyway. But why do I do it? Probably because it's part of my life that goes back to the things that I do love. Mm-hmm. And so the feeling of staying late in connection to my wife does not feel like an inconvenience. In connection to my job feels like a very big inconvenience.
And it's because of an obligation?
And I have an obligation to both. I'm doing the same action. Mm-hmm. In one, feel the resentment and the difficulty. In the other, do not feel the resentment and the difficulty. I love one, I don't love the other. Did the same action for the same sense of obligation, the same sense of duty, the same sense of honoring my commitment. There's lots of things that are parallel in there. But in one, as I think and as I resolve my feelings and conclusions about these two things, I love one, I don't love the other. And I feel the resentment. So I could almost simultaneously, I could feel resentment and feel bad, but it's not towards the thing that I love. It's towards the thing that's making me do the thing I don't want to do, perhaps.
So I guess the question is like that what I was asking is, so you have two obligations, work and your spouse, and something that you don't like happened at work, meaning you have to stay late. That feeling of sourness in your mouth versus your spouse who's asking you to go do something that might be inconvenient to you. Well, what makes you decide this is love and this is not love?
Well, I think it's what makes you decide this is an inconvenience or this is not an inconvenience.
And
the answer to that is love. Uh-huh. And and from there, see, I guess I have this imagination that I've reached the bedrock, where you'd say, okay, what is that? That's a phone. Okay, I have something in my pocket. What is this? That's a phone. They're different things. So what exactly is a phone? Is it that computer? No, they're slightly different. And then you pick up like in a handheld, a rotary phone. You say, what is this? It's a phone. Well, these two things are extremely different. Well, what's the point of them? Well, it's a device that calls other devices. And so if you have a device that calls other devices, you have a phone. And so it's you reach a bedrock where it's like there is no other simpler definition. And I guess so I'm searching for that, which is ambitious. Maybe can't be done. Maybe that's part of the mystery of love in general, or even other difficult concepts of integrity and creativity and these sort of things. But for me, I feel like I reach bedrock there, where it's like that's what makes the decision. Like I can make decisions based on that,
right?
And say, okay, well, will you go do this thing? Will you do it is actually different than are you willing to do it, or will you be resentful by doing it? Because I will stay late for work. Right. I will do it. They pay me money to do it. That doesn't mean I love work. It doesn't mean I love CSDI. It doesn't even mean that I love money. Mm-hmm. And you might go a couple more layers and say, well, okay, why do you need money? And well, that's because it provides me for a house and a family, and I love my family and my home for my family.
So would it be safe to say that you will never feel inconvenienced by anything for the people or the person that you love?
I want to be careful because you use the word never. So
let's say one day,
and somebody's going to play this podcast back at me.
But
I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes, where it's like I've committed unless I stop loving that person.
So hold on. So you said yes, that you will never feel inconvenienced by something. By the person that loves
needing
that
to
you
do
love.
Something for the person I love.
Interesting.
I kind of want. That's where so that's what I want to be challenged on. Mm-hmm. And I think right now I'm going to say yes. And then if I need to reevaluate, because I can be educated, I can learn over time.
I mean, there's no. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, you youngsters, even though you and I are the same exact age, but like you youngsters, like I've been doing this for 10 years and 3 kids. I have some story. I don't want to even go there at all. But I guess where I'm going is like I'm putting myself in those shoes where if it's extreme cases of like life or death or no other option, then you're like, let's do it. For example, I don't want to bring this up because we haven't shared about it yet.
You haven't fixed that fight.
Well, so like it's about my kids. So,
I'll use something simple.
Okay.
Right. So early on in my relationship, Sundays I was going to play pickup basketball, and one Sunday Mary wanted to go to her family's house for dinner, and so I said, yeah, we'll go to your family's house for dinner. But I did it in such a way that I made it obvious that I was, and I don't even think I knew that I was doing this, but I instinctually kind of let her know, like, oh, this is a bummer. I'm missing out on pickup basketball with like 6 other guys, not for anything.
Right.
But yet I let you know it was an inconvenience to me. Mm-hmm. And that was because I would look back and say, well, young Rich, you don't love her. Mm-hmm. And she's wanting more from you. She wants you to love her, and she can tell that you don't love. It's not that I don't think people would be upset by that, to say like, oh, he just really loves basketball and I asked him to do something that was extremely inconvenient. No, this was a little thing. Mm-hmm. Like, this wasn't really that inconvenient. It also didn't really matter that I showed up for dinner that day. She can go to dinner by herself with her family if she wanted to. But what mattered was that I made it clear I didn't love her because it was such an inconvenience to go be with her and her family for dinner. Mm-hmm. And I would say now, as a person who loves her and her family, I would gladly forbear some of my activities or more important things.
Well, because you kind of assess that's the value system. You go, you and your family are more important than my basketball, which is clear. It is, right? That's simple. It's an easy equation. But what happens?
But it's like a scoff and an eye roll. Like, oh, can I not have both? Like, can you do dinner later, or can I just? I mean, I'll be there from 5 to 6:30. Can I just come after? Or like, it's this mentality of like, I can tell you don't put me first. Mm-hmm. I can tell it's an inconvenience to you to have to do something for me, and maybe not in such specific words as I'm trying to put it down. I think you can say, what really annoys me is that I can tell you don't love me yet. Even though like you don't have to pin your whole "do you love me" based on this one action, this one question, but you would gather living with a person or being in a relationship with a person, little things like this one after another, and you would realize this person thinks that every time they do something for me, I should keep score, or it's an inconvenience, or it needs to be reciprocated, or it doesn't feel like, oh, this person would do anything for me. And that, I think, is what makes the unique aspect of love versus other reasons we do things for people.
So I guess the direction I'm trying to lean is what happens when enough time goes by and they're not clear day and night choices, like my parents and dinner, my parents and dinner, or basketball with some guys, right? What happens when it's a little bit more not important? What happens when you had, Little League on Monday, you had jiu-jitsu practice for the kids on Tuesday, they're doing football on Friday, and you're jam-smacked with work all week, and then she goes, hey, on Saturday, we're all going to go with my friends to the fair. Now, assume that you don't like the fair. You can care two shits about the fair. And this is me, right?
Yeah. No, I thought you were talking about someone else.
Right. My friend Malix, we'll call him. At that point, there's a part of me that goes, I don't want to go to the fair. This entire week, I feel like something's been going on. You've had a friend, with her husband come over who, that's fine, they came over. I'm not a fan of them. All the kids had all these things this entire week, and I've been super busy shooting content all week.
Yeah.
And here's a Saturday, and all I want to do is just stay in and like watch TV and just do nothing. You're inconvenienced. At least I am. Now, does that mean I don't love my wife because she wants to go to the fair with the kids and a bunch of other couples? Now, if my wife goes, hey,
I want to be in this corner to defend this because I want to know if this definition's true.
Well, because the point, because it's easy for him to be like, Jack's got today is his playoff game. No part of me is like, first of all, I'm not one of those sports dads where I like I want to go coach and all that stuff. I do like when I'm comfortable, I'm in a chair, they got coaches listen to Irene and I will sit there, have a beer, and we're just like enjoying that. That's awesome. That's memories. Yeah. But when it's like, those are simple choices for me to make and be like, yeah. Yes, sure, I have to rush right after this and wash up and go meet them there. But what if it's like her friends?
What was the opportunity cost of the fair? What else would you have done?
Well, I wanted to finally be on the couch and just kind of have a lazy day, watch maybe some UFC or something like that. But I just wanted to, I have a lot of times where we have something almost every single day, some kind of thing that I want to just finally just like lay out and relax. Now, she loves me so much so that she goes.
So here's where before I lose this train of thought.
Yeah.
The whole thing I'm trying to work with is willingness. So are you willing to go to the fair if she said it's important?
If she says it's important, yes, I'm willing to go.
You're willing.
But it's not often that she says it's important.
If somebody said, I'm not going to the fair, I need my time alone, and they felt very justified to say, it's for all these reasons, it's very legit, I just need to rest, I'm not going to the fair.
Well, I would never say it like that, putting my foot down, but it's like, it's very often I'm very passive aggressive, like, we're going to the fair with X, Y, and Z. Babe, I don't like crowds. I just want to it's been a crazy week. I just want to hang out at the house.
Yeah.
She's always really cool, but she also doesn't want to be at the fair with the only mom without the husband there.
Yeah.
So it's important to her.
But she also doesn't want to be there with a husband who doesn't want to be there.
Right, but she'll be like, go get a drink and,
I've had that where
I'm still inconvenienced by it.
Does that mean I don't love her? I've had that where I got in trouble for doing something that my partner wanted to, we'll just keep it mysterious.
Yeah. Your non-gender binary.
Which person we're talking about. But, where I got in trouble for, I went and did the thing. I went to the yoga class. Mm-hmm. Well, you made it clear that you didn't want to be there. You were kind of like scoffing and rolling your eyes the whole time. So it didn't count towards my little bank of my little credit to things that we did that week anyway. Mm-hmm. So because I didn't do it in a sense, and so, okay, why is it important that I feel that way? And I think it's because people recognize that you're not loving them if you're there begrudgingly. why did I bring you along if you're just going to complain the whole time, if you're going to drag your feet or look at your watch and say, when can we leave? How many corn dogs do you need before we can go back home, sweetie? I'm ready to watch the UFC. That's not going to work. I think if you approach that to say, hey, we've obviously had a really busy week. I'm really exhausted. I'll tell you what, if it's important to you and your friends that I come along, I want to go. But I am really tired. I would love to if it's something we can negotiate, I'd love to just have some time to myself. But I want you to know that I will go and I'll support you and I'll be
are we pinpointing
the most excited husband there the whole time.
Are we pinpointing the level of importance something is to that person? I guess if that's a different conversation then, right? Because at that point, is it really that important for you for me to be there with you? Yes. Okay. Then I'll consider this to be an ER thing.
Yeah, I think what's difficult about the scenario is that it's easy to say, okay, let me compare Irina to other things or obligations, but now you're putting you and her toe to toe in your priorities. And it's like, that's a really hard one. And that's one that would come back and she would say, well, like if you're obviously tired, like I don't want you to have to suffer. Like I don't want you to have to suffer, and then you don't want me to have to suffer. And we're saying, who's more important, you or me? Well, that's like, I don't know how to answer that question yet. I don't think I'm ready to answer that one. But in the situation where you don't want to go to the fair, but you are willing to, and you would do it.
If it's really important.
If it's important, you would do it. I just need to know if this is an ER thing. Yeah. Or at some point, you might reach a place where you say, I don't need to know if it's an ER thing. I can just tell. I can just tell that I need to do this. I need to suck it up. And maybe it comes back to me in some sort of credit, but if it doesn't, I do it anyway because I love her.
Well, and the credits, I don't know if I support the credit system, but
I'm using it a little bit ironically.
Right. I get it. I get it.
That might be level 1,
right?
But yeah, level 2 here, or however many levels in level 1.5
right.
is to say there isn't a credit system, and I do it regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much I have to deposit, I don't count the withdrawals, and I don't wait and see when can I withdraw back my credits that I gave you. That was a big problem, I think, in my my first immature understanding of how to give of time and manage presence with my partner. Is it's like, all right, Wednesday we got your thing, Thursday we got my thing, Monday let me go do this by myself, Saturday you have that with your girls. It all looks even to me.
So see, that's a lot of things change when it's, again, I don't want to go back saying nobody's complete if there's no kids, but it's all of that. I feel like the game changes when there's kids because there's no longer you and your thing. Like, I don't remember the last time I went out with the guys for beers. I don't remember the last time I went to, but I don't sit there dwelling on it. I don't go like, oh man, woe me, man, married life sucks. I don't do that at all. What it is like, it's redefined, be like, everything now is a family thing together. And so it's no longer me, it's about everybody else. It's a oneness and it's everybody else, right? And I'm completely happy about it. I think it's exactly how it should be. I think the importance that a certain thing are important to somebody. In fact, I do this with my kids too. Like, we do that with their crafts, right? They you know how many pictures they bring home? You're not going to put every picture on the refrigerator. But I have the conversation with them and be like, hey, are you extremely proud of this, or do you feel like you can do better? Because if you're extremely proud of it, we're going to hang it right here.
We can keep 10 photos on the wall.
Right. And you could upgrade them, right? Yep. But we can't keep it, and they understand that. They go like, and I'll be sure to be specific. There's a great book I read for parenting. It's called Raising Lions by, I forgot who it was, but you have that conversation of what is important to you and know what the consequences are. That's
a good thing to have to think about.
Right. And so with the relationship, what's great is that I constantly, like, I'll ask my boys, is like, is this important for me to be there? Like, well, no, it's not that important. It's like, we could do this thing. So there's a level system. With my wife, we do the same thing. Hey, is it that important? But also, and I think this is the key thing, is she treats me the way I would like to be treated, and it makes me reciprocate back to her as like treating her because how great she's been treating me, and how I'd want to be treated. So oftentimes when she will, let's say it's a planned thing, it's like, hey, I promised the boys I'll take them to a trampoline park, and she'll be like, you don't have to come, meaning it's not important to her. Now, my kids can care less. Dad's just sitting on the bench, you know what I mean? But it's picking and choosing and having a conversation that the person sees like, this has priority, this not. I'm pretty sure if it comes to going to dinner, with her friends, it's important to her. It's important that I show up. If when it comes to going to trampoline park, and what's important to her is important to me.
And that's there's a lesson that all husbands have to learn is what the hierarchy of importance of things are to their wife, and you need to figure that out pretty quick so that you're investing your time and energy where it matters to her, not just what you think matters.
Yeah, and investing your time and energy is very important too. But also, I mean, we can give example and what ifs over and over, but I don't want to bore anybody. But I remember Irina had the staging business. And there's so many times that I need to be there to help her because she couldn't even get movers, or she couldn't, back in the trailer. She knew how to drive the truck and trailer, but she couldn't back it in. Like all these little things that I have my work day. We have a system. Kyle shows up. We record from 10 to 3. We have an operation going here that's dialed in. He's got obligation. He's got kids. We have a schedule. We have sponsorship. We need to meet deadlines. And now, the morning of,
I need you to interrupt that and then come do a bunch of work.
And I know it's important to her. And I know she's really dependent. And I know she's not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm still, and I show up. I show up. Yeah. But I am very inconvenienced because this system of operation is now had a wrench thrown at it. Now, if it's my kid calling
but the nuance is, do you resent Irina because you have to deal with that, or do you just resent the fact that it's a bunch of extra work?
I resent the fact that this wasn't planned, and if there was a way, if there was a way to prevent this, and now listen, if there's nothing we could do to prevent this, then hey, I don't resent you, I resent the shitty situation. But
that's a bit like resenting work compared to resenting the wife.
It's the situation. That's what it is. But I'm there with a sour face for sure. You know what I mean? Like, and you can talk to her. Like, we both tease each other about sour faces because before, anyway, that's another conversation. But I think you could, yeah. And maybe that's going back to my kid's situation too. Like when his ear hurt and we're going to the hospital, I'm inconvenienced because of the situation and the fact that the situation, I'm critical of it. Like, that's not a.
And there's another option. You think there's a better way to handle it, and you're like, okay, I'm also irritated that you could have told me sooner. I'm irritated that we could have hired someone. Yes. I'm irritated that there's situational things. I'm irritated that you don't need to go to the ER.
I'm not irritated because you need me. That's not what I'm irritated about.
I don't resent you because I had to work for you.
Yeah, and I don't resent you because you need me.
Right.
It's good to be needed.
That's where I think there's some nuance. And maybe people are just rolling their eyes right now and saying, none of this matters. This is just a semantic.
Yeah. Nothing's real. Reality's a suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. We're all making this up. And, but yeah, that I guess we got to eventually wrap it up. Yeah, I got to get back to work,
I got my kids. Yeah, you came from work.
I guess I'm toying with that idea. And, and I would challenge if you're thinking, okay, this is just a bunch of BS, or it's not worth identifying even. But when you tell someone you love them, it's like, what do you mean? And I guess say another sentence. Like, what's a synonym for that?
Yeah.
And in terms of like, okay, my busy week, and you got the kids and the wife and everything, and you huddle them all up, and it's Saturday, or you have a tough decision to make, especially this one where it's like you versus me, where it's like, the work schedule and your work schedule, these are very close priority things, and I'm split. This is Neo in the Matrix having to go save Trinity and also just go out the right door to destroy the source and save Zion. It's like you're not supposed to be able to do both. I can try to be a hero and do both, or you're going to have to pick. And so it's a trolley car problem. Like, are you really ethically responsible? I can't come back and say, well, you don't love your wife because you didn't choose that circumstance. Because in the other sense, you also chose like you gave up work or something. You don't love yourself, or like you lose no matter what, or you win no matter what.
Yeah.
That's a really tough spot to be in. But when you huddle your family up on that Saturday and say, I love you, what is it?
What is it?
What do you think you mean?
Yeah. You just said blah, 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 blah. It's a word. It's a sound that you made.
There's a certain,
but the meaning behind it is a different conversation.
Yeah, and there, you could say, it means I'll be here for you. It means I'll give you my money and I'll work for you. And
don't piss me off.
It means I'll talk to you nicely, or I will, whatever. And I think, to me, it just like it starts to like, that's the best thing I can keep falling back on, is it means I'm willing to do anything for you. It means I'm willing to do it, and I'll be happy to do it. And you can ask me for my last dollar,
and you can have it. And that's kind of the prodigal son thing, right? The dad says, you can squander your inheritance. Come on back. I'll give you another ring. I'll give you another robe.
Yeah.
And that's an example of love. And yeah, I think there's a lot of analogies, but yeah. So I'm just resting on that at the moment.
I like it. It's in the words.
And we got to stop at some point.
In the words of the great Justin Bieber. What do you mean?
Exactly. He's a philosopher.
He's a philosopher. Philosophize this. All right, Rich, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. Go check out. Is it Free Candy?
There's nothing to check out, dude. There's nothing to check out.
Anyway, we'll have Rich back on the podcast again, and we'll see how.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for this show to launch me. so you want to sponsor me and get me on your show?
We'll start a channel underneath you.
I did talk to my buddy Luke, who's been on a couple episodes of Free Candy. We're like, it might be time to re-up another, but not as Free Candy. It's another chapter. We got Barry Free Candy. Move on.
How many episodes do you have of Free Candy?
There's like 17 or 18.
17, 18. I like it.
And they're great. They're fun. They're fun to watch. Free Candy. If you can find it on YouTube, there's a lot of things called Free Candy out there on YouTube. So you got to wade through the garbage.
Yeah. I love it. All right, man. Thanks for coming on here, man.